and I run the Somerset Youth Parliament group. As you probably know, that's why I'm here. And it's quite misunderstood. I think generally, forever, we're hearing young people and, well, not so much teachers, but the people saying, what does it do? Who is it? So I sit within the engagement and participation team in the council. We're a tiny team. There's about 4 of us at the moment. We're just waiting for a new manager because our last one, Fiona First, some of you might know her, retired. And we've spent this week supporting staff and young people to do the interviews for that job. So that's a really interesting, exciting process for them. Um, and I started life as a youth and community worker as part of the youth service long time ago, working in clubs, as Nick's done, working in schools, doing detached work, basically doing the same work now within the council, but for a lot less money. We got downgraded. Our qualification was kicked to the curb. But it's essentially, it's not even youth work, it's people work, I'd call it. So I'm going to show you a few slides and I'm going to talk around the slides, but I'm not going to do death by PowerPoint. I'll give you a minute or a few seconds to maybe read some of the interesting stuff, but it's very basic. So please do stop me if you want to ask any questions. Hopefully I'll see your hand up or someone will tell me. I'm not sure what's going to happen when I share the screen. But without further ado, oh, and if I just suddenly start coughing, I'm at the tail end of a cold. And I just keep getting a little tickle. So I'll just whack my mic off, take a drink of water, and I'll be back. Here we go. Right, let's hope this works. There it is. There's the beauty. I never know what I'm going to get on Teams. And hopefully you can see that. Lovely. Okay. So I've told you who I am. I'll come back to this in a little bit, but within the team that I've told you about, we have a worker who concentrates on the Somerset In Care Council and the Somerset Leaving Council. We've got somebody who runs the Unstoppables group, which is young people with SEND. And we also have been running something called the Youth Forum, Somerset Youth Forum. We've all got slightly different remits. So the In Care Council, Leaving Care Council, and Unstoppables are basically volunteers for the council with their interests in mind. So the council, the partners might come to those groups to put certain things on the agenda. Youth Parliament has got a different remit. They're standalone because they're elected, some of them, and they run campaigns of their choice. But essentially, they're representatives of all young people. Practically, obviously, like an adult MP, that's impossible to cover all of Somerset, but we do our best. So moving on to the next slide. They're a local group from Somerset of voluntary representatives. So to join the group, they've got to be either going to school or college in Somerset, or they've got to live or work in Somerset. And they're aligned to the National Youth Parliament. At the moment, this is hosted, the KYP, by the National Youth Agency. If anybody's got any questions about that, you can ask me anytime. It used to be run by the British Youth Council, but they're now overseen by the National Youth Agency. So we've got a national platform and we've also got a regional platform and the local work, which is where we tend to make the most difference, I think. I'm not going to read this whole bullet point out, but the group's values and principles are rooted squarely. Our frame of reference is around equality, equity, diversity, inclusion, and respect, and obviously democracy, because we try and be as democratic as possible. We meet once a month as a whole group. During COVID, as you'll all remember, most of our meetings went onto Teams or Zoom, with mixed success. There have been some benefits to that, but it doesn't have legs. We're a task group, so we have an agenda every month when we meet. So it's good to meet up face to face sometimes, and that's started to happen over the last year. Obviously, budget constraints can compromise that sometimes, so we've got to be fairly fluid. But we try and address the needs of the group as much as possible and make those decisions together as we go. So at the moment, we're meeting in Bridgewater and Ilminster. Just depends on the affordability of the venues. But we do run additional group meetings online throughout the month, whether that's the elected members when we look specifically at their campaign development, or we've got another piece of work going on that we've been asked to look into or create. Or young people themselves have brought an issue to us, and we decide to make a project of it that will run alongside the campaigns. So we'll meet as a focus group or a task group. And as I've said, the elected members each run a campaign of their choice. They don't do that in all counties up and down the country. They're sometimes told to pick the national, one or more of the national priorities, whereas we hold that, but we allow our young people to release their passions, if you like, and their interests and their creativity in the topics that they're most interested in, because then we get the commitment much better. So, and that consistency as well. The rest of the group, apart from our elected members, are an advisory group, and basically they support the campaigns and the elected MYPs as much as possible. Stopped my cough, excuse me. But they can also run their own projects as well. So we tend to have a lot of stuff going on. Excuse me. And the elected members were allowed 3 in Somerset because of the number of young people we've got in the county. That dictates how many MYPs, we call them, members of youth parliament, we can have. And at the moment we've got 2 because one's had to step down for personal reasons. So we're just in the middle of deciding as a group how we're going to make best of her work so far and where to place that work, because they've still got another year to run. They've got a 2-year term of office, and that's over in March 26. Any questions so far? Just give me a shout. So young people can be part of Somerset Youth Parliament either through the elected process. They've got to be aged between 11 or 17 to stand for election, because at the end of their 2 years, at the end of as they turn 19, they have to step down, because obviously they can vote in the adult elections at some point. So we do take them to 18. And they can continue running their campaigns. The advisory group, however, we've got members from 10 to 25, as you can see there. We used to have it 11 to 17 alongside the MYPs, but what we've learnt over the last couple of years is that the culture of Somerset Youth Parliament is so precious to us and important to us that we'd have outgoing members who would leave and go off to university, and we'd lose that continuity and that role modeling for the younger members. So we took the age group up to 25, and that means some of the older ones can come along to some of the meetings, maybe not all of the meetings, because they've got other fish to fry. They can focus on their university courses or their work, but we welcome them back for advice and support in the group, and also maybe platforming some issues that they're aware of. We dropped it to 10 because one of our annual commitments is supporting the Children's Parliament event day every year. And this is run by Skill, and this is a competition day for primary schools to enter with a group of their pupils to talk about global citizenship, big topics of interest like the environment. We've had stuff around equality before. We've heard speeches and presentations about all the things that Somerset Youth Parliament talk about. And the members that came along with me to facilitate a session with these pupils were absolutely blown away by the quality and the information and the passion around those topics, which just mirrored ours. And it was a bit of a wake-up call for all of us. We thought, actually, we need to be getting these children, young people in earlier to Youth Parliament, because they're the future of Youth Parliament. We want them to leave a legacy that's passed on from member to member. And another wake-up call for us, it was just glaring us in the face, is don't ever underestimate children and young people, because they get straight to the point. They can sound a bit brutal sometimes, which is why a lot of adults are a little bit wobbly meeting young people. I get it, they're brutal with us as well, but you get the truth. They'll tell it you as it is, and they get to the answers for problem solving. Absolutely amazes me. So, as I say, I've got 10-year-olds who are coming to our meetings regularly and inputting just as much as any of the older ones. What is also a beautiful thing is when you've got all these young people together from different backgrounds, different experiences, different age groups, how well they work together. It's inspiring, to be honest, and I do feel very privileged and lucky to still be doing what I'm doing. So just a little bit of a break from me talking for a little bit of visual stimulation. Here's some of our lovely members. If I wobble my cursor over something, can you see that? No. Can you just see the presentation? You can see it. So this is James, one of our elected members, whose campaign I'll talk about in a while, but it's to do with the environment. And he went on a school trip to Iceland, and those are the ice caps that are melting behind him. He did say himself, I'm not sure if it was appropriate to be smiling, but he was having the time of his life and learning lots as well. And then this is a group that was working on some trauma-informed work with the Somerset Safeguarding Partnership Board. And this is the Children's Parliament Day, and again, some more of our members. This is an old picture that I wanted to put in there, which was some of our members and some school students who'd taken the day off school to raise the issue of the climate emergency. And this was right before Somerset led on declaring an emergency with the climate. Unfortunately, young people's kind of, whether you agree with them taking a day off school or not, you could argue the power of young people when they get together, well, power for anybody when we get together, I think. But it seemed like it was over in a flash. And then the council really struggled to involve young people's voices from there on in. That was a bit of a tricky one. So in some ways, I'm glad James is running the climate campaign, because we've not done that for a couple of years, and we're involved in some other work as well within the council to do with jobs, future jobs in environment and climate work with the Careers Hub. Again, this is our then 3 elected members of Youth Parliament. We go to the House of Commons once a year, and all the MYPs from across the country gather there, and they debate what is going to be the national manifesto, and they have a big vote in the House of Commons. And it's a fast and furious day, but an amazing learning opportunity. They get the chance to speak. It's televised. It's usually every November, and it's kind of a bit like a cherry on the top for the members of Youth Parliament because they work so hard as well. Again, just some of our lovely members. And this is us at one of the Children's Parliament days that I mentioned. And I'm just having a quick check through there. I've told you all about that. That's good. I preempted that. And then I'm just going to move on to this slide. So I think I've said, but just to reiterate, we hold elections for new NYPs every 2 years. And the reason why I'm repeating that is because we are in an election year. So we run our elections in December ahead of the current NYP stepping down. And the reason for that is because it's such a big job to pull off, and it's kind of me and my team supporting me and the members of Youth Parliament themselves. It's a massive challenge to try and get the information out there to schools and then get schools and college support. It's always been the same. I've been doing this since about 2011. It's always been a challenge, but for different reasons. So the political, social climate context is constantly changing, and the barriers to getting through to schools and getting them on board has changed somewhat in the climate post-COVID. And we try and get comms on board with that. We go through the school's newsletter. We've got a friend in the Careers Hub who's going to promote the elections. And basically, any young person aged 11 to 17 can nominate themselves for election and register to vote. The last time we ran elections was before we had a website, and it was a massive challenge even within our own comms team, because the trick to promoting the elections is to try and keep it simple so you don't overwhelm people. I need to hold the complicated stuff, but comms wanted a full essay, like a full article rather than a press release, which confused things. But I'm very excited about elections this year. One, because we've got the website, and it means young people, schools, services, parents can all look on that website. And we've found that it's been very successful since it started out last year. So all our members are instructed to provide us with quotes, thoughts on what's going on politically in their environment, socially, politically, keep up to date with what young people's concerns are, what their topics of interest are, but also provide articles for the website. So there is a news thread, so you'll see all the diverse kinds of topics and things they talk about on there. And the website is at the bottom of my emails, but it's also in the bottom of this presentation. I'm hoping that because of the website, we can put all the documents on there, the timeline, we can create a separate page for elections and voting, and we can circumnavigate some of the clunky processes that have held us up before. And direct people to the website, but also they can read it and then come back to me and say, can we have a chat? Can we have a meeting about this? And I try and be as helpful as possible to schools by sending them templates. We can also promote the young people themselves on the website once they've set down their campaign ideas. ready for voting. I've said each NYP runs a campaign of their choice. At the moment, James is running Young People in the Fragile Environment. And Emma, our lovely Emma, is running Young People in Social Media, Hot Topic, with her focus on mental health and well-being. And as I've said, we work on lots of other topics. It could be transport, it could be education, it could be poverty, it could be period poverty, safety in schools we've been involved with consistently over the last few years after some members of Youth Parliament brought some stories around sexual assault in schools. And we did look into that through schools and followed up on it, and it turned out that not only was the scenarios and the cases absolutely accurate, if anything, they were a lot worse, and that was throughout Somerset. So we worked closely. I'm saying we, young people work closely with the Somerset Safeguarding Partnership Board, with the police. We've taken some of our interest to the ICS board, and we've improved some of the training for teachers and made it more accessible. And that's just an example of one of the things that we do. Now, because we're not adult led, if an adult came to us and said, I'll pitch something with a group, and they have done, we've had quite a few journalists contact us through the website. And trying to spot the genuine agenda isn't very difficult after a few conversations. And basically they're pushing their adult agenda and their political biases, and trying to use the group for that. But we're very good at guarding against that, and the young people are very good at that as well, because the idea is that they're going to work alongside people of all political parties. There's different people with different interests in the group, or different, maybe have political persuasions, but Youth Parliament is apolitical. It's public facing, and it needs to represent all young people. That's why we say we're apolitical. Of course, young people, some of them have got ideas, some of them are more political than others, but my focus with the group is around that the social political with a small p environment, that people work that I was talking about before, and communication and negotiation and compromise and problem solving and resilience. We like to sort of roll our sleeves up and get involved in that. And to do that, you've got to be quite self-aware. So there's a lot of personal skill development going on and group development going on constantly. And I do say to the group that although I'm an adult in the group and I'm responsible for sort of framing the work we do, and proposing ideas and keeping them on task to some extent, they've every right to challenge me and tell me that I'm talking rubbish and we think you've gone on the wrong track. They've got every right to take over the agenda, chair the agenda. The reality is they're busier, these young people, than they've ever been before. So I'm quite happy to pick up and run with something, but I always run it by them and say, are you happy with this? Do you want me to deal with this one because it's not directly about one of your projects or your campaigns? Or do we set aside time to get a small focus group looking at it? Because we want to be useful engines to services and to the council and to decision makers. So it's quite a big task. This picture here is just something that we do as a development thing. And we kind of try and get young people to start sorting these out and ordering them in priorities. And of course, there's no right or wrong answer. It depends what group of young people you're talking to and what scenario you're in, but it's kind of getting them to negotiate with each other and work out why they think like that and what they're passionate about. I did notice you sent a message, Michelle, but I can't see it, so I'll turn my chat on.
Oh no, I've just put the link to the website in the chat as well.
Thank you. So that's that bit. I think I've going to, how do I move forward? There it is. Only a few more to go, guys. And this slide is probably just summarizing some of it. Our work is all about aspiring to embed youth voice, children's voice in services. That's easier said than done, and I'm not sure it'll ever get to that point. We have had examples in other counties where we've had a young people's shadow board to shadow a mirror the have a young people's scrutiny board, things like that. But the practicalities in that in Somerset have always been very difficult, because there's still a lack of understanding around when young people are available. So for example, trying to get young people to a daytime meeting or within office hours, or trying to get adults to our weekend meetings or evening meetings, is always difficult. And some adults will kind of throw in the towel, and others are, and I've got to say more and more are starting to go, yeah, we can work with this, we can work around it. So it'd be nice, if nothing else, if we could have young people's voices as a standing agenda on some of those boards and those strategic boards. Again, we've not achieved that yet, but it's good to have aspirations. And the young people are not stupid. They know that sometimes their voices are being used tokenistically. But now and again, that's what we've got to do. And sometimes there's something to be gained from that, either better communication, better understanding, better networking. So we can challenge the MYPs have got a remit where they can challenge some of the decision making. It doesn't happen an awful lot because they do respect how difficult some of the decision making is, and sometimes they can understand the logic around it. But they do like to say, well, if you're gonna make this decision, that might happen, or look out for this. But I think at the end of the day, I think we're missing a massive trick if we're not running more stuff by young people, because I think that collaborative working is the key to the resilience of our community. Anyway, I'll get off my soapbox. So they get involved in all sorts of stuff. They've done grant giving before. They were trained grant givers. Grants are few and far between, and the opportunities to give out those grants are even fewer and far between for young people. But we act as consultants. They have interview training and form interview panels, and they're bloody good, I have to say. They knock my socks off. They create resources and workshops, and they facilitate those as well. They've hosted conferences, they make speeches and presentations, they've made films, podcasts, again, lots of stuff. So it's Youth Parliament. I think what I'm trying to say there is Youth Parliament isn't about people joining of necessarily high achieving young people. There are those in the group, but there are other young people who might not be as academically blessed, but are possibly just as smart, if not smarter in other ways. And we've got people with disabilities, we've got people with learning difficulties, and that mix of understanding and that fast development of empathy and respect really makes the group tighter. But we're always looking for new members. The more members we have, the more democratic the group can be. It's as simple as that. So we might get people joining who don't want to become a member of Youth Parliament, and that's fair enough. And I say, you know, some of them do go on to be politicians. We've had people leave the group to be members of Young Labour and then become councillors themselves, or we've had members join the Young Conservatives, and again, they've gone on to be councillors around the country, and some of them I'm still in touch with now. And I don't know if you had a chance to read that quote while I was wittering on, but that quote is a couple of years old from a current member. I don't understand why we have to keep fighting to get our voices heard. If you want to know what's best for us, or if services are working for us, why wouldn't you ask us? Better still, involve us. It doesn't make any sense. Again, it's that kind of brutal right to the... I don't know if I dare say that myself, but the young people can. So again, some lovely pictures. This is James at the Somerset Sustainable Futures event that was talking about the racecourse last year, hoping that's going to happen again this year. Fascinating stuff. Abby, who's been doing interviews this week, Children's Parliament Day, and then just some of our members doing lots of different things, different activities, attending different workshops. So I just want to say thanks for listening. I'm sorry if I've wittered on a little bit, but I hope it's piqued your interest. And I suppose my appeal to you is, if you do know of anybody working with young people who might be interested in at least coming along to one of our meetings, seeing what it's about. They don't have to join. The group is very, very welcoming. But it would be great to hear from young people about what's going on in their localities. And then again, that makes Youth Parliament more able to represent and address topics of interest, as I've said. But if people want to join, they're more than welcome to join. And if they want to stand for election, our information is going to be on our website, probably in the next week or two. And I can send that information to Michelle as well. If you want to contact me, there's my email address, but you can find me through email if you're on the government website. And that's me done. I'm so impressed with myself that I didn't burst out coughing. So I'm going to stop sharing now so I can see your lovely faces. Okay. Thank you for your time. Anybody heard of Youth Parliament? Anybody found anything different? Thanks, Caroline. Is it what you thought it was, Caroline?
Yeah, more or less. I think
okay, that's good.
I'm very interested in this in terms of how I've got questions. Can I ask questions?
Oh, please do. Yeah.
Okay. First question is around how, so there's obviously interaction between the Youth Parliament and Somerset Council, but increasingly the action, if you're a politician, you want to get things done, the action is not at Somerset Council. The action is, well, if you live in a big town, not so much in a tiny parish, but if you live in a town like Taunton, Welly, Bridgie, Yeovil, the action is with your town council. That's where you can, there's so much more scope for getting things done. And I just wondered, agree. How does, is there a sort of mechanism that you've tried before working with? I mean, Taunton Town Council is very, very new. It's only been going 2 years. It's only 2 years old. But is there a sort of tried and tested way, or are there case studies of where you've engaged with specific? I mean, I guess it's difficult because you've only got like two or three of the young MPs, and I guess they could be from, you know, one could, I don't know where they come from, and it's a big county, and they're not necessarily going to be interested unless it'd be more the advisory group, I guess, if you had like a gaggle of kids.
It could be any, yeah. So we've got one from Taunton. James is from Taunton, and Emma's from Wells. So we do have quite a spread. We have tried to engage with town councils and youth parish councils in the past, and I believe James is in touch with his parish council, but he's never managed to get to it. It's knowing who to contact and if they're running, and then whether they're interested in engaging with youth parliament, because we quite often get we kind of go round the block chasing our tails on it. So obviously we need to be invited into that. But I know James is very active locally, but obviously it'd be much better if he could get to the root of where the action is, as you've suggested, Caroline.
Well, I mean, like, just to give an example, we have a climate and ecological working group. If his big thing is climate, and he would like to actually make something happen locally,
yeah.
We have a brilliant climate officer who's very young, Jordan, and that might be a route through which he could suggest something, and he could actually see it be actioned.
Yes, and that's it, because it's kind of like wading through tar sometimes, depending on who you're talking to, and then also getting the people you're working with to acknowledge the work that they've done as an MYP or been collaborating with. That's another big thing. Same with services and people who consult with us, trying to get feedback afterwards about the difference Youth Parliament have made is and the changes, it's the I mean, it's all well and good changing thinking and changing intentions, but what we're interested in is outcomes at the end of it. And quite often services forget the process. After giving you a nod and a thanks, or maybe a voucher, although that's not a big thing with Youth Parliament, by the time they've got to the actual outcome, they completely drop you and you've not been mentioned. And that's endlessly frustrating for Youth Parliament. So to see things at the point of action is massively exciting. I know James would be excited about that, Caroline. So please link me in. That'd be lovely. Thank you.
Can I have a naughty and have a second question? So I work. It's not. I'm part of the home ed community, right?
Yes.
Big community. So I'm thinking. There's a link on the website. So join the Somerset Youth Parliament. So this would be to kind of initially plug in. So for looking at the first page, an obvious question is, it doesn't matter then, you don't have to be attached to a school or college. You could just say I'm home ed.
I used to have home ed young people. I had about 4 when I first started Youth Parliament. I had about 4 home ed people. Absolutely fantastic. The energy and the different thinking. They put a completely different spin and frame things differently. So it creates a lot of conversation with the other members that are in school. And it helps them to develop as a group, bigger and brighter. So please do.
But if their details wouldn't then get passed to the EHE team, for example, because there are still a few that have been doing it for families have been doing it for ages and ages, and they would want to they might want to participate, but they wouldn't want that to then.
They don't have to be public facing. They don't have to. So say, for example, just to give an example, say they joined the group, and one of their monthly tasks is to write an article. We can put an avatar on there, or no picture, or a picture of the environment or something like that. And we don't have to put the name on there either if they want that complete anonymity. We can do that for any of our members, either if they're under a child protection order possibly, or if they're particularly young and the parents aren't happy with the public facing stuff. We protect people's interests. I do, because of the wrong assumptions about the demographics about Youth Parliament, and we've been told that you're just a group of middle class white young people who are high achieving. Our group is a lot more mixed than that, and I think that fluctuates politically as well. For me, collecting those demographics is important, but we don't share that information with anybody. It's completely confidential. Hope that answers your question. I might have gone off a bit.
It was just this thing about people not wanting their details passed on within the council.
God, no. Yeah,
I thought that would be the case. So I might do some promo then across the home ed groups.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you, Caroline. Really appreciate it. Thank you for holding on, Dom. What was your question? Oh, you're on mute, lovely. Still muted. There you go.
I'm so sorry. You'd think I'd know by now. So hi, Kate. I'm Claire. I'm Claire. I'm Dawn. So I'm chair of the Taunton LCN at the moment. And I just think it's brilliant. Honestly, it's amazing work you're doing, it's just so interesting to start kids. I remember Tom Deacon, one of our councillors, saying he got into politics because a Lib Dem came to talk at his school. A Lib Dem MP came to talk at his school, and he just was so inspired by the idea of public service work that he aspires to be an MP, and that's all it can take at that right moment is to engage with someone on these sort of topics, and you can set a fire alight, can't you, into future leaders.
Absolutely.
So I think
Adam Dance as well. He came through youth services and was one of the major voices of protest of the youth services decline, really. And you can't fault
right. No, I wasn't aware of that. So that's brilliant. And I'm just sort of thinking, as a Somerset councillor, how could these young people come in to meetings or get voices at meetings? And one of probably the most learning environments are scrutiny committees. So we have scrutiny committees, and you've got communities, you've got climate and place. And the topics wouldn't always be of interest, but there could be times when there's topics on those agendas. But logistically, those meetings happen during the day. So how would that work for the young people?
That's the challenge I was talking about earlier. But it depends how regular they are, how long they are. I mean, it could be that we've got an older member who's got a more flexible timetable if they're at college. But there's going to be a turnover of that. You're not necessarily going to get the same person every time. I don't think that's sometimes necessary. If are they face-to-face meetings, John?
Yeah, so they're in the room, or they're online as well. You can join in online, but I think they'd get more from being in the room.
I think so.
And so there's scrutiny for education. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but that would be, maybe even a platform for them to come and talk to education scrutiny about what's going on with youth parliament, because I think there's an awful lot of people who probably still don't know about this work you're doing, and a lot of council, elected councillors who would benefit from knowing about this. And I'm just thinking, to get an item onto the agenda there about youth parliament would be amazing.
And I probably should have said more about what youth parliament gives young people in terms of their development. It's phenomenal, the speed, their confidence excels, and they do that on the back of each other. But there's confidence, there's communication, there's presentation skills, there's public speaking skills, and we do it in such a way that the training we give them, the skills training we give them, and the follow-up makes it fun, makes being challenged fun, and even getting things wrong and falling on your face fun, but it's still building your confidence because you don't forget the falls. So I think if we could get a small group together at any of those meetings. Lee Redmond used to run the scrutiny.
He still does. He's chair.
Bless him, he's tried with me a few times, but we always hit that brick wall. It's during the day. We talked about maybe getting a small number of people as a one-off, but then maybe my idea was if we could have sight of the agenda beforehand so that they could fly in for maybe not the full meeting, but maybe talk or represent for some of it, talk about youth parliament, maybe talk about what are the main issues.
I'm sure Lee would be up for it. And, you know, I think if Michelle can maybe send him a copy of these slides and say that, you know, we were suggesting it'd be really good for the youth parliament to come and talk at the education scrutiny, I'm sure he'd be supportive of it if it could be made possible.
Absolutely. I mean, there's so much more we can do since back then when Lee and I tried it. I mean, young people can make short videos, they can do short presentations if worst comes to the worst. But a lot of it for me is about getting the dates for the meetings for the different boards. So I've got time to sort out where young people are and gather them and prepare them, because they do need, because they'll wobble, but they're great in the moment. But that's, you know, that's all about preparation and practice.
And that's where Taunton Town Council might be an easier step, because a lot of their meetings are in the evenings rather than during the day. But I do think, you know, the work of Somerset Council could really be illuminating for them to see in action some of the kind of decisions getting taken and discussions that take place over topics, especially, you know, with regard to education, but also climate and emergency and all, you know, all the various topics that happen at scrutiny meetings. Okay, sorry, I'll shut up now. Okay.
No, that's great. You're saying all the things that we've spoken about, and we in the past we've had a good relationship with Mark Fortune. You know, we've kind of supported him on a few things, facilitated a few things when he was doing work experience. But yeah, I mean, youth parliament are up for it, and anyone who joins the group, doesn't matter how introvert, shy, awkward they feel when they come into the group, it's almost like immediate after the first meeting, face-to-face meeting, when they kind of like get into the groove of it and they feel safe and they feel respected and heard. And then obviously they become more aspirational as well. But I think it helps that transition into either further education, and it helps with you know, being work ready, which is why we've been working with the Careers Hub as well. But the same at the lower age end as well. So some of our members are in primary school, just about to leave for secondary, and they're complaining they're not getting enough quality careers education. And there's an assumption that children, young people at primary school aren't ready for that, because we still underestimate them.
They've got a lot of thoughts on a lot of the world's topics.
Absolutely.
Okay,
thanks,
brilliant.
John. I'm really sorry I've not kept up with the chat, but I'm sure you guys are. If anyone wants to jump in and bring my attention to something, please do. Oh, organisations. Oh, lovely. Right. European Mental Health Spark. I know you, Nick. Do you, out of curiosity, do you still work with John Hellier, Nick? Or are you a separate organisation now? Okay.
Yeah, so I'm here. I'm the responsible individual, if you like, for In the Mix project at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah, so let's call it that. But yeah, no,
so you're going to tell me you've been doing that for years? And I've just missed it. I blinked.
Yeah, well, on and off I have, but in the last couple of years, my role has changed, and so now I'm sort of the person who is responsible for making youth work happen in this part of the county. So there we go, doing my bit.
Just a little job like that, then.
Yeah,
just a little job. Yeah. Well, good on you. I mean, when youth service died in Somerset, you know, there was that big panic that youth work is dead, and it did flounder a little bit, but some people have kept it going, thank golly. And I would like to say that I am a professionally qualified youth worker, but some of the best youth workers I've worked with don't have a certificate, and some of the worst youth workers I've ever worked with, and I can say that now youth service isn't around anymore, were the ones that were most highly qualified and would have the certificates on the wall. Youth work is people work. It's about engaging, being intuitive, being interested. We use this term trauma informed at the moment. We're all eager to push that trauma-informed way of working. And I looked at the training, and obviously I've done the training, really value it, but it's youth work. It's asking people how they feel, asking people what they think, not trying to force solutions down their throat because we think we know better. You know, it's where the environment they're sat in, and it's not about using our power as professionals to undermine and silence people, whether that's young people or adults. So yeah, I think I've waffled long enough. So if anybody wants to get in touch with me after this, please do. I know Michelle's going to circulate the PowerPoint, although I didn't talk about everything. Hopefully you've got some insight into that, and I'd love to hear from you, Caroline and Dawn.
Yeah, and also with my I'm also, as I put in the chat box, I'm also chair of the Community and Place Committee within Taunton Town Council, and the climate, everything sits under my committee. So Councillor Ellis Caroline, she's on the climate working group. She's also on the Community and Place. You've got lots of hats, Caro, haven't you? She's also on the youth working group as well.
Wow.
I don't know how she sleeps.
I think it's a passion. I think it's passion. When you've got passion for something,
absolutely,
that energy keeps you going. Yeah,
I think so. Between me and Caro, we'll both see if we can find how the town council, Taunton Town Council, can actually assist and actually, you know, fit in with this and get the youth parliament involved. Absolutely.
Fantastic. Thank you for your time. I'll hand over to you, Michelle.
Oh, well, thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for coming.
my other hat on, with my LCN Young People's Chair hat on. Massive thank you, Kate, and massive thank you for the people that's come as well today. And hopefully once we can get, there might be more questions once Michelle circulates these, you know, the things from today. There might be more from those who couldn't actually come today. So your inbox might be bombarded, Kate.
I hope so. Hope so, in a good way.
Thanks ever
Thank
so
you
much.
very much. Right. Bye.
Thanks so much, Kate.
Thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you. Thanks, Kate. It's amazing.
Thank you.